Hello, my friends. Today I'm going to be talking about foundation. So, I know this isn't the most exciting part of your makeup routine. It's not the most exciting part of mine. Most of us probably don't get that excited about, oh, a new foundation came out, or I get to put on foundation today, things like that. You're probably mostly excited about eyeshadow or lipstick or something like that. But foundation, at least I believe, foundation is the base to any good, clean makeup look. And that doesn't mean that it needs to be totally full coverage. It just means that you need to feel comfortable in it, but it also needs to match your skin. It needs to be right for your skin type. And you gotta check off all those boxes. In all honesty, there are a lot of popular foundations out right now that I have not tried, and I'm not going to be talking about those today. I went through Sephora's website and Target and looked at the foundations that they have, and picked the top 5 foundations from Sephora and Target, and only the ones that I've tried, though. Personally, I've tried. And today I am going to give you their ratings on a scale of 1 to 15. And there are 3 categories that they will be rated 1 to 5. So coverage, because I feel like that's important to a lot of people. Wear length, so how long does it actually stay on your face and stay put? And then in person, so how does it actually look in person? Because there are some foundations that have great coverage that last for a long time, but they look so bad when you actually see someone in person with that on, or when you have it on in a public place. And they're more for like photography professional use, to be honest. So I'm going to start with Sephora, and then after I go through these, I'm going to go through different skin types. I'm going to talk about oily skin type, dry skin type, regular or combination skin type, and then troubled skin. So just if you have a lot of acne, you're breaking out a lot, or you just have really sensitive troubled skin in general. And those are going to be the 4 different categories. Then I'm going to give some suggestions for foundations that are currently popular, foundations that people are using and that I've used before that would be perfect for your skin type. So let's get started. Okay, so first we're going to go through the Sephora foundations. So number 5 out of the most popular, I'm going to start with number 5, NARS Sheer Glow Foundation. I used NARS Sheer Glow Foundation for multiple years, went through a lot of bottles of this. My mother still wears this. I kind of introduced it to her and she still wears it to this day. I still really like this foundation. It's definitely pricier than even a lot of other prestige foundations. It's even more expensive than those, but it is a really nice foundation. So for coverage, it gets a 2. It is a sheer foundation. It's more of like a tint as opposed to an actual full coverage foundation. But personally, I like foundations that are more like that. For length, it gets a 4 out of 5. So these are out of 5, and then the overall is out of 15. It gets a 4 out of 5. It does last a really long time. It stays on your face. It sticks. And then for in person, it also gets a 4 because it really just kind of blends in with your skin. It's not perfect because a lot of the colors, they don't actually have a ton of color options, and a lot of the colors are kind of weird. It's hard to explain how they, like the color that my mother wears, perfect for her. I could never find a color that was exactly perfect for my skin. So in person, it gets a 4 because it's pretty good, but not perfect. And so the overall score for that one is a 10 out of 15, which is a pretty good score, and we'll see that a lot today, that 10 is actually a pretty good score. So number 4 is going to be the Kat Von D Lock-It Foundation. I don't purchase Kat Von D makeup anymore because I have a lot of problems with Kat Von D in general, and I don't want to support her brand, which I will not get into that, but I just have a lot of problems with her in general, so I don't purchase Kat Von D products anymore, but I did used to use the Kat Von D Lock-It Foundation. I believe the formula has been changed a bit, but it's mostly the same. It is a super high, full coverage, thick foundation. So for coverage, this one does get a 5. It covers everything, but for length, it actually gets a 3. If you have even just a little bit of oil on your skin, if your nose gets a little bit oily, that is going to come off because that foundation is so thick. And then for in person, it gets a 2. Because it is so thick, it looks absolutely not natural at all. It just ends up kind of looking ugly on the skin. And I used to wear this a lot when my skin was really, really bad, and it really did cover everything, but it didn't actually look that much better because it did just kind of look globbed on. So this one actually also gets a 10 out of 10 out of 15, but it's not quite as even. Yes, coverage is higher, but there are plenty of other better foundations with a lot of coverage that actually look good on your skin. So, okay, number 3 is the Too Faced Born This Way foundation. I have tried this and I went through, I think, just one bottle because I wasn't totally in love with it. The coverage gets about a 3. It's like, meh, it's all right. Length gets about a 3. It's all right. And then in person gets a 3 because it does kind of oxidize a little bit. So it gets a 9 overall. Not that bad of a score, not that good either, and I probably wouldn't recommend it to anyone. It is totally fine, and if you really like Too Faced, then you might actually like it, but it's just kind of a moderate foundation. Number 2 is the Makeup Forever Ultra HD foundation. So, I don't think I said this at the beginning. I use the Makeup Forever Reboot, which is a pretty new one that they just came out with, but it's not quite as popular yet. But I really do like that one. I also really loved the Makeup Forever Ultra HD that I used to wear. It is slightly more coverage than the Makeup Reboot, though it only gets a 3 for coverage because it is a more radiant finish, not radiant, but just a natural finish. It doesn't have quite the same amount of coverage that a more matte finish would have. The length gets a 4. This really does stick on. It looks really good on the skin also. It gets a 5 for that, which I believe that's the first 5 I've given. Yeah. So it gets a 5 for in-person look. It really does look amazing on the skin. The Ultra HD name kind of does live up when it comes to this foundation, and that gets a 12 out of 15, which is an awesome score. It really is an awesome foundation. And number 1 from Sephora is the Fenty Soft Matte Foundation. So this is Rihanna's brand. Fenty is Rihanna's brand. And I've tried this foundation right after it came out. And I was underwhelmed. This is one of the top, I think it is the top selling foundation at Sephora right now. And it's just kind of okay. For coverage, it gets a 4, so that's pretty good. For length, it gets a 3, and for in-person look, it gets a 4. So it's not bad, but personally, I can't wear it day after day because, and I'll get to this later, I hate matte foundations, and I think matte foundations are not really good for most people on a daily basis. If you're doing it for a particular makeup look, or if you're doing it for a particular, a photo shoot or something like that, and you just need a totally matte, full coverage look, that's totally fine. But for an everyday matte, even a soft matte, is not the way to go. But this does get an 11 out of 15 because it does look very pretty, but I wouldn't wear it every day. Okay, so moving on to the Target foundation. Starting in number 5, we have the NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop foundation. This one got pretty popular. It's one of NYX's newer foundations. It just came out within the past year, I think. For coverage, it gets a 4. This one's okay on coverage, pretty good. But for length, it gets a 2. It definitely comes off really, really easily, especially if you have any kind of oil. It just right off. And then for in-person look, it also gets a 2. It's kind of splotchy. It doesn't totally spread out even with like a beauty blender or a sponge. It's not really an even look on your face. And then I did have it oxidize, especially around my jawline, which is obviously a yucky look. And so the overall score for this one is an 8 out of 15. Number 4 is the Maybelline Fit Me Matte Foundation. For this one, its coverage is a 3. It's actually not that great of coverage for a matte foundation. I found that was surprising because matte foundations typically have a ton of coverage. This one did not. For length, it has a 3. Again, with all matte foundations, if you have oil, it's going to swip right off. And then in person, a 3. Matte, just, I feel like super matte foundations like this don't ever look that good on anyone. But on me, personally, definitely not. So its overall is a 9 out of 15. Okay, number 3 is also a Maybelline. It's the Maybelline Dream Radiant. This is also one of their newer ones. The Fit Me has been around for a while, but the Dream Radiant is a little bit newer. This one gets a 3 out of 5 for coverage. It's a pretty fine coverage for a radiant foundation. For length, it gets a 4. So 4, it does last a little bit longer, but then for in person it gets a 2. It just looks globbed on, and it honestly just looks bad on the skin. This one's a really hard one to express because I didn't find that it oxidized a lot, but it just didn't look good on my skin. When I tried it on, it covered everything that I needed it to cover, and it was the right shade. But I don't know, maybe it just made my pores more defined. I think that's probably what it was, because that's typically why I don't like certain foundations and I can't put my finger on it. It probably just made my pores a little bit more defined than I like. That one got a 9 out of 15 for me. Okay, number 2 is the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear Foundation. This is the highest scoring foundation of both categories. For coverage, this gets a 4. It really does cover very, very nicely while still being a radiant. You're never going to get a 5 in coverage when it comes to a natural foundation, but a 4 is great. When it comes to length, also 4. Very nice. Whereas it's a 24-hour foundation, which you shouldn't wear your foundation for 24 hours, but it really does last a long time. It lasts all day for me when I wear it. And then for the in-person look, it gets a 5 because it looks perfect on the skin. It gives you a wonderful, beautiful canvas. Very, very nice, very even. It doesn't accentuate your pores. It doesn't sit into the fine lines of your face as the day goes on. It doesn't crease. So I really, really like that one. That one gets a 13 out of 15, which is awesome. Okay, and then last, the number 1 from Target is the Pixi Skin Tint. This is, like it says, more of a tint than a foundation. So coverage, it gets a 2. It does wear for an okay amount of time for a tint. It gets a 3 for that one. And then the in-person look gets a 4 because it does look really nice on the skin. I used this a lot when I was younger and I didn't want to wear a full face of foundation every day, or I'll wear it when I know that I'm going to be kind of active that day. You shouldn't really wear makeup when you're going to like the gym or anything, but if I know that I'm just going to be like walking around a lot or doing a lot of heavy lifting for whatever reason, or something like that, a tint is a really nice way. And this Pixi gets a 9 out of 15. Not a great score, but a pretty good score for a tint like that, not an actual foundation. So let's start out with skin types individually and talk about what's going to be best for your skin type when you're thinking about foundations, and then I'll give some recommendations. But of course, you pick in the end, so it's nice to know the reasoning behind the recommendations. So for oily skin, let's start off there. Moisturize. Some people are simply produce more oil than others. That just happens. That's just how some people are. But the vast majority of people who have really, really oily faces or really oily hair are people that are overstripping their oils. So you're either washing your face too much, you're wearing too many matte foundations or moisturizers or things like that, you're washing your hair too much, things like that. If you are stripping your face from all its natural oils, your body is sitting there thinking, oh, okay, I need to moisturize my face. I'll start producing more oils. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it that way, that our body responds to what we take away from it. So moisturize, moisturize, moisturize. Do not get any mattifying moisturizers. Use normal moisturizers, and I promise you it will help. Additionally, matte foundations are going to be bad for your skin because A, you shouldn't be drying out your skin anymore. You need to be adding moisture to it. And B, like I was mentioning earlier, if you have oily skin, or even if you just have a little bit of oil, when it comes to matte foundations, those are going to wipe right off because that's just how formulas for matte foundations work. If you have oil on it, it's going to come off a whole lot more easier than maybe a more natural finish. So don't get a matte foundation. So now, dry skin, moisturize. You already know that if you have dry skin, you need to moisturize, so I don't need to tell you that. But anything that is radiant or glowy specifically, not natural, but radiant or glowy or illuminizing, those type of foundations actually might accentuate your dead skin or problem areas a little bit more than you like. So those actually might not be the best for your skin. A more natural, not a matte either, but a more natural, totally kind of even. So dry skin, you already know that you need to moisturize. You already know that that's something that you need to do. I don't need to tell you that. But some people think that they need to fly over to the radiant, glowy, illuminizing foundations. And those are different from natural foundations. Natural foundations are just baseline. This should be what your skin naturally looks like. But radiant or illuminating are probably going to have a little bit more shimmer to it, or they're probably not going to totally set on your face. And those type of foundations can actually really accentuate, they can accentuate any problem areas that you have, any dry skin that you have, and that's obviously not a good thing. So it's best to go with a natural foundation. You don't want to go with a matte either, because those will also accentuate any problem areas you have. So it's kind of a little bit harder to have dry skin because you pretty much only have one option. When it comes to regular or combo skin, moisturize. Obviously, everybody needs to be moisturizing all the time. It's so good for your skin. Do it morning and night. Use a really good moisturizer. Use a sleeping pack if you're able to get that. And if you don't know what a sleeping pack is, I'll do a video on it. But regular skin or combination skin, you can basically treat these the same way, because combination skin, typically you're not going to have like huge dry patches here and a super oily T-zone here. It's going to be more moderate. It's going to be more like a regular, a little bit up, a little bit down kind of a thing. So just moisturize. Try out different things. If you find that you do like a little bit more of a matte foundation, go for it. That's up to you. I never would recommend it, but I'm not the boss of you. And if you find that you like a more glowy, radiant, illuminating one, then perfect. That's fine. Really, you can do whatever you want. You're lucky because you don't have to worry about a million other things. So when it comes to troubled or blemishy skin, I know it's hard because I've had times when my entire face was breaking out and I just wanted to cover it. But if you have blemishy skin, wear as little foundation, not makeup in general, but wear as little foundation as possible, as you're comfortable with, basically. Of course, you want to feel good and you want to feel good about yourself when you go out, but if you have the ability to wear a little bit less and a little bit less, that is what's best for your skin. It's going to heal better that way, because when you put a big layer of thick, full coverage foundation on, it really just seals in all the bacteria. It seals in all of those issues. And it's way better to let our skin breathe, in a sense, than it is to seal it up with foundation, even though we might be tempted to do that when we're having lots of problems with it. So wear as little coverage foundation as possible, because that will help a lot to heal your skin and to start the process of getting more even skin, just kind of in general. Besides that, just make sure you're treating it. Make sure that you are washing your face. Make sure that you're treating your spots. Make sure that you're not picking or touching too much. And, things should get better eventually. Okay, so on to the recommendations. Like I said, with regular combo skin, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So try out different foundations. Try out some of the ones, especially those higher rated ones that I mentioned today. So I didn't talk about this earlier, but the Makeup Forever Reboot Foundation, the one that I wear, is one of my favorites. It gets a 13 out of 15 on my score. It has a 3 for coverage. It's a pretty good coverage, but it definitely is a more natural finish, so it's not going to cover everything. It gets a 5 for length and a 5 for in-person. This is the best looking foundation that I've ever worn, and it lasts all day, looking wonderful. I love this one. And so let's start out with oily, because that's actually my first recommendation for oily skin. I have a pretty oily T-zone, just naturally, and it comes and goes with hormones, with the seasons, comes and goes. but I feel like the Makeup Forever Reboot Foundation is really, really good for my skin, and I think it would be good for someone who has even more oily skin than me because it is a natural finish, like I talked about a minute ago. Another drugstore would be the L'Oreal Fresh Wear. That one was also a 13. Great foundation, wears a long time. It is the only drugstore foundation that I have ever really loved, and I would definitely, if tomorrow I didn't have the money to purchase the Makeup Forever one, or I just didn't want to spend it, I would go out and buy the L'Oreal Fresh Wear in a heartbeat. If this one got discontinued, I would just continue buying the L'Oreal Fresh Wear because it really is really good. And then the last one is the NARS Sheer Glow. I know that one only got a 10, but this one still has a very special place in my heart, as well as still being a really good foundation. The reason it's a 10 is because the coverage isn't very high, but it really does look nice. So if you want something that is a little bit lighter coverage, that one is a really good one, looks beautiful on the skin, and it does wear for a pretty long time, and it's good for oily skin. For dry skin, I put the Makeup Forever Ultra HD as probably one of the best ones. It has a little bit more coverage than the Reboot, but it also has, like, weirdly a little bit more moisturizing than the Reboot. So that's actually kind of good for dry skin, but it is a very natural finish. That one was a 12 out of 15. Another one that I didn't rate because it's actually not quite as popular is the Urban Decay Naked Skin, which would get a 13 on my scale. Pretty good coverage, looks really nice in person, and it lasts a long time. And that is the Urban Decay Naked Skin Foundation. Really good one, pretty moderate price, a little bit less than Makeup Forever for sure. For the dry skin, I really didn't have a good drugstore that I could think of. There are lots that you can try that are in that natural finish, but a lot of times drugstore foundations, don't know why, tend to be matte. So I would just look around. If you want something that's a little bit cheaper, there are lots of websites where you can compare certain foundations to drugstore foundations, like prestige to drugstore, that are like similar. So do that. I couldn't find anything that I was comfortable recommending, but I'm sure you can find something. Okay, and then finally, if you have troubled skin, like I said, steer away from full coverage, steer away from even medium coverage, do as little coverage as you can. The first thing I have to recommend, again, not one that I rated today because it's not quite as popular, is the IT Cosmetics CC Cream. This is probably the best, well, one of the best coverage. It's probably a good medium coverage for troubled skin. A CC cream, which is obviously better for your skin than just a flat out foundation, has a lot more benefits. And it's not near as heavy. Again, you don't want something heavy on your skin if it's very troubled. If you are going to select this one, IT Cosmetics CC creams also have a radiant and a matte in the CC cream. Don't do either of those. I wouldn't do either of those. If you have troubled skin, I would just go straight for the plain natural finish. Then there is the NARS Sheer Glow again. Like I said, this one was only a 10 out of 15, but it is actually a really good foundation that is really light. And NARS in particular, I've never ever had problems or heard of anyone having problems with their skin after using NARS. Lots of people will try foundations, and even if they like it, they might break out or they might have other issues. NARS is a very high quality brand, very expensive brand, but very high quality, and I would definitely recommend that one to anyone with troubled skin. And then last is the Neutrogena Healthy Skin. I didn't mention this one either because this one isn't near as popular. It is a medicated foundation. I used one bottle of this couple years back. From what I remember, it gets like a 10 out of 15 for me. It is crazy high coverage, very high coverage, which normally, no, that's not good for troubled skin, but because it has some medicated properties, it's not so bad. The takebacks, of course, are that it doesn't last near as long, and it doesn't look quite as nice on the skin, but this one is a little bit cheaper because it is a drugstore. It's not quite as expensive as the other two. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, had fun watching it, and learned something new. And let me know if you want me to do another video like this. I was thinking about next talking about face products besides foundation, so talking about bronzer, blushes, highlighters, things like that, doing a video with those 3. And then eventually I want to talk about eyeshadows and brands that have really nice eyeshadow palettes or really nice individual eyeshadows. But let me know if you want to see something like that. I would be absolutely happy to do it. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you guys later. Bye, friends.